At its time, it was the largest clock at a football ground in Britain. Sadly, 6 years later, it was destroyed by a German bomb during the Second World War.
I was actually an accomplished electrician. I was a tradesman from that point of view. So it just became a second job to me, that was all. Didn't last for long.
"1937 was also the year that Millwall went down in history as becoming the first side from Division 3 to reach the semi-finals of the FA Cup. The Wembley trail had begun with a 6-1 win at Aldershot, followed by a 7-0 thrashing of Gateshead, the club's biggest FA Cup win, and a 2-0 victory over Fulham in round 3. Millwall's impressive run continued against First Division Chelsea.
Millwall produced one of the big surprises of the fourth round when they defeated Chelsea by 3-0. Here's the Chelsea team. Millwall in red shirts and white shorts made the most of their opportunities, and despite nervousness at the start, they soon established their superiority. Here the weather was depressing too. After half an hour the home side took the lead, and 2 more goals took them on to round 5. A record crowd packed into the Millwall ground for the only cup tie in London, and before the game began hundreds left their places and ran to find better seats. Order was restored after a time, and then the teams came out. First Millwall, while the crowd surged and swayed like a wheat field in a wind. Then the white-jerseyed men from the north, Derby County. Derby won the toss, and Millwall kicked off in the face of a stiffish breeze. Thrills came early. A vigorous attack by Derby found the Millwall goal in danger. A shot. But it went safely into the crowd. Again the onlookers got restive and rushed across the pitch. Then once more the play got really exciting and the spectators got all worked up. A few minutes later came the first goal for Derby. A battering attack found Keane in possession and he scored. Shortly afterwards, Millwall equalised through Mangnall, and the score at half-time was 1-1. Derby kicked off in the second half, and this period saw the struggle of 2 teams battling for that extra goal to get into round 6. It seemed that Millwall had it. From a centre, the ball went to Mangnall, who popped it into the Derby net, but it was offside. Are you still eating? At last, Millwall's persistent attack had its reward. McCartney took the ball and nicked it in, so Millwall won a grand game by 2-1. And for a finish, the crowd ran wild, bursting over the pitch in a crazy, chaotic mass. A cup tie never witnessed any more amazing scenes. A tremendous crowd saw football history made at the Den, when the London side from Division 3 smashed their way through round 6. While the home side were coming out, the usual casualties were being passed down after having passed out. Then Manchester City came out. The toss-up and the kick-off were moments of breathless excitement, the choice of end, and then the start of a match that meant so much. Millwall have been the surprise packet of the 1937 ties. Could they possibly produce another win? The home side forced a corner, and then, playing his first cup tie for Millwall, Barker sent a header flying into the City net. Half-time, bring out the lemons. In the second half, Manchester City brought on all the football they knew, but the home side kept their end up. Then came another Millwall goal. This time Mangnall got his head to it and scored. Millwall 2, Manchester City 0. That was the score at the final whistle, and the crowd again went surging over the pitch, cheering the only third division side ever to reach the semi-final.
So Millwall's remarkable run had taken them all the way to the semi-finals, but that was where the road to Wembley ended. A 2-1 semi-final defeat by Sunderland curtailed the Lions' dreams of further glory.
We weren't given any chance against Chelsea, let's be honest. But we beat them too. Yeah. And we were a good side. And as I've said before, the amalgamation of players becoming as a body instead of 11 units will always make a successful side. I'm sure of it. They don't need exceptional ability. They get together and they fight for one another, and you've got success.
But 12 months later, the Lions bounced back with promotion to the second division, winning the third division south for the second time. Triumphant manager Charlie Hewitt would spend another 2 years in charge before resigning following an FA suspension in June 1940. The war years, of course, would prove a difficult time for everyone, but Millwall were determined to carry on, guided by their fifth manager, Bill Voisey. Voisey, a distinguished hero from the First World War with full military honours, often had difficulty raising a team. A former England international, he even had to play himself on occasions at the ripe old age of 50. Another problem, of course, was the bombs. The Den was badly damaged in April 1943. It was a year later before they finally returned to carry on playing in front of the wreckage. This was the scene in March 1944. In November of that year, and with the war almost over, Jack Cock took over as manager, with Voisey reverting to trainer. Cock, another former player, had set a Millwall record of 77 goals in 4 seasons that would stand until the 70s. Just 5 months into Cock's reign, Millwall finally made it to a cup final at Wembley, the southern section of a wartime competition organised by the Football League. A clash of colours meant Millwall wore the white shirts of England. Nonetheless, it was Chelsea who took the honours, claiming victory by 2-0. For Ed Smith, the biggest disappointment was again missing out on appearing at Wembley.
I played many games for Millwall in the war years. I was attached to a government department and I could get in to play football, which I did, but I wasn't selected that day, so I missed it. And I've never played at Wembley.
How did you feel about that?
Well, I'm not really, because it was only that if I was asked to play, then I was available to play. But I played for Tottenham in those same years. So, you know, it was just one of those things. And they must have had the side that they wanted without my assistance, so fair enough.
But one man who did make Millwall's Wembley lineup was George Fisher.
And I nearly never made it because the semi-final we played Arsenal and I got a bad ankle, twisted, went over on it and it was all swelling up, and that was funny because on the week before the final was played, Stanley Matthews was playing for Arsenal, for Chelsea on Monday, then he wasn't playing on Tuesday, then he was on Wednesday, yeah. And then he wasn't on Thursday.
Lawton was the same.
And in the end, he never played. But that was the sort of thing I was looking forward to. Either, you know, good luck, enough playing in the cup final. But there was 108,000 at that game, and we got 2, 3, and 6 tickets.
Lucky.
And I had a family of 20, so you could. A lot of them didn't go to the game, but.
Yeah.
Millwall had well and truly established their roots at Coldblow Lane. After 4 temporary stops on the Isle of Dogs, the Lions had finally settled down at the Den, and there were plenty of good times still to come. The winds of change had certainly taken their toll. In the years that followed the Second World War, it was standing room only at Coldblow Lane. Following the fire damage of 1943, the Den was temporarily a seat-free zone. It was during this period that Millwall recorded their record Football League attendance, a crowd of 45,000 packing the Den for the match against Notts County in October 1948.
We had marvellous support, actually. When I first went there, they'd lost a stand. But in the second division, we had anything from 30 to 40,000. And all the people stood up on that, and they would never allow it today, but they did. Then when we dropped into the third division, and Tommy Lawton went to Notts County, and they came down, there was 45,000 there that day. And we beat them 3-2, I think. George Fisher played outside left that day.
Did he really?
Yeah. I think he scored, I'm not sure.
A boardroom change during that year signalled the end of Jack Cock's reign as manager. In came former boss Charlie Hewitt. He didn't have the financial backing he received during the pre-war reign. The rebuilding of the main stand meant a lack of revenue. Nonetheless, Hewitt led the Lions to the runners-up spot in the 3rd Division South in 1953. Along the way, they were knocked out of the FA Cup by Manchester United.
Well, the atmosphere was always a marvellous atmosphere. You had a very good crowd of chaps, you know. wouldn't go a lot on the manager.